Louise Bedford here. I'm your host for the Mind Over Market segment. This week, we're going to be talking about that dreaded word ego. And in fact, the topic for today is riding high, keep your ego in check when you're raking in the profits. Now, we know that we need just enough confidence as traders to get involved in the markets and to take action. But we also know that if we have overconfidence and too much confidence, that can mean that we're likely to overtrade and we can shoot ourselves in the foot. Now, to help me discuss this topic, I have invited Paralympian Don Elgin into the studio to talk with me about this very topic. And Don, I will introduce you properly in just a moment, but I do have a few questions that I'd like our traders to address. And I would like you to think about these questions too, and I'll get your comments on this. So let's have a look at the questions that can represent, does a trader have a growth mindset? Now, a growth mindset means you're welcoming new challenges, you're not judging yourself too harshly, and you're also not judging others too harshly. You're looking actively for mentors to help you. Ask yourself, do you feel a surge of inspiration when you hear about another trader's success in the markets? Now, if you do, fantastic. That is a sign that you have a growth mindset. Do you think, well, that's not for me. I'm happy with far less than that huge profit. Anyway, they must have some special talent. So, if you're thinking in that way, then that really limits you, and that would be a sign of a fixed mindset. And what about the final question? Do you feel a twinge of jealousy when somebody has done something very well in the markets? If they're on the top 5 of your company's scoreboard for top traders, if they've got the highest profit of the year, of the month, or of the minute, do you feel that jealousy? Do you silently curse them instead of applaud them? Now, Don, I'd love your thoughts on this in terms of a fixed mindset versus a growth mindset. Do you find them interesting questions from a trading perspective?
Oh, I do, Louise. Listening to that, when I got to those second and the third question, I started thinking, do people actually think like that? Because for me as an athlete, like it's the default that becomes the default, and it's a trained thing to get to the growth mindset. Because I think we all have we all have our own mindset and how it is, and how we nurture it and grow it, and whatever we feed, that's the thing that grows. So the more we feed a growth mindset, the more it grows for us, and it helps us to continue to look for opportunities that way, and it helps us also to really appreciate and celebrate all the things that are happening around us. Because I figure if we can celebrate somebody else's wins, then they're likely to celebrate ours. Because I'm always the same, whether it's lotto or sport or trades. When somebody's having a win, I go, good on you, mate, because one day it's going to be my turn, and I'm going to keep working on that, and when it comes, I hope you go, good on you to me. So yeah, absolutely, I'm a big believer that why don't we all celebrate more often?
Yeah. Look, I'm hearing you at a very deep level. And Don, you do know what you're talking about. Let me introduce you properly. Don, you are a Paralympic medalist. You're a motivational speaker and the father of 4. Now, you were born without the lower half of your left leg in New South Wales, and you transformed what some could see as a handicap into something that you could actually use as a sparkling example of motivation, really living an extraordinary life in the process. Now, from competing in 4 world championships, 3 Paralympic games, to standing behind podiums as a sought-after motivational speaker, your warmth and humour and determination inspires audiences nationwide. I love your autobiography, 1 Foot on the Podium, and it earned you a silver medal at the Independent Publisher Book Awards in 2016. Now, Don, I'm loving your background. You know I do. Tell me, what have I missed from all of that about your background?
Well, Lisa, I think one thing I have to do is I have to go right back to the start. When you first started this episode, you said, does your thinking limit you? Is it like shooting yourself in the foot? And I straight away had beads of sweat. I'm going, I shoot myself in the foot. I'm stuffed because I'm only down to 1 foot. So I want to make sure that I don't shoot myself in the foot. I also want to make sure that I think that I never lose sight of where I've come from. And when we talk about today about ego, I got the greatest lesson from my dad. He goes, mate, doesn't matter how many medals you get. Doesn't matter what you get up to. Don't ever forget where you've come from. And I was raised in a little country town called Tokemall and ridiculously proud of the opportunity that I had to be a part of the furniture in Toke, to play footy with my mates. To my parents ran the public swimming pool and a caravan park there. I literally got to go to the School of Hard Knocks, and I got to learn a bit. I got to learn a lot, actually. And one thing I've never forgotten is the fact that life is filled with ups and downs, and if we can embrace those and we can take the lessons from wherever we've learnt them and apply them to our life when we need them, then we're most likely to get the most out of life. So I think you covered it off pretty good, to be honest. And I'm absolutely, I'm not going to lie, I loved reminiscing when you were saying about the 3 Paralympic Games and the 4 World Cups or 4 World Champs. So they were really exciting times in my life, awesome opportunities. And for me to take those transferable skills from sport into other areas of my life. So whether it's business, trading, whatever else, I choose to do, relationships, we can learn so much when we're focused on a particular area. But it really is a shame not to say, well, what is transferable? What can I take to another area of my life?
What about ego? I mean, you're an elite athlete. You definitely would have had to face some of these ego issues, the same as traders have to face them when they do exceptionally well in the markets. What advice can you offer our traders for keeping themselves in check?
Yeah. In my world, it's keep your foot on the ground. It is like literally stay grounded. It's probably the best advice I can give, is because there's nothing wrong with a bit of ego. Like, let's put that on the table straight up. If you don't love yourself and you're not willing to get around you and celebrate your wins, then you're missing out. So you've got to do that. But you also need to make sure that you don't lose track. So in Australia, we've got this wonderful thing called the tall poppy syndrome. And basically, we love our leaders, but if you get disconnected from the pack, we'll cut you off. We'll let you go. We'll cut you down. You're too big. So, and that I don't think any of us actually want that. When we're doing what we're doing in life, we actually want, for me, it's about putting my arms around and saying, let's all do this together. And no ego, if it gets too big, it doesn't fit. It doesn't feel right. People won't feel good about being around you. I'm a people person. I want to be around people. And if my ego gets in the way, that's what happens. It gets in the way. And one thing I reckon has been instrumental for me to be able to, that constant reminder about keeping my foot on the ground, stay grounded, is it's having good people around you. It's having somebody that you can listen to, and they're not going to talk any BS. They're going to give it to you straight. You might not like hearing, hey, take your head out of your, and get back on track, but that might be what you need to hear. And so for me, it's about good. You need to know who you can take that advice from. And that group of people, I tell you now, you'll be able to count them on one hand. It's not who you see on Instagram and Facebook and it's not that, it's not the noise. It's bringing in, this person gets me and they know when I'm getting off track. My dad is gold for me in that space.
Oh, really?
Absolutely.
So your dad's a big mentor for you?
Well, my dad gives it to me straight. There's no, he really doesn't mind. He, and what I love about when my dad gives me advice, he hasn't got an agenda. The only thing he's got is my best interest at heart. He only cares how I'm going. So it's not to better himself or to do anything else in any other way other than to help me. And so that is a really, really important thing, is to have that mentor, that confidant, that somebody, might be your wife, your partner, your mentor, somebody who's close enough but far enough away so you can make that, they'll give you the space to be you. But when you're being out of control, you're losing track, or you're getting caught up, or you're making stupid decisions in your trades, and you're not being following the process and doing what we know we need to do, then they'll help rein you back in. Really, really
Yeah.
valuable.
I'm loving that. You've also touched on an area of behavioral psychology, which is comparison, the comparison effect. So I'll perhaps give you the frame, and I'd love your views. So you've described a mentor, but you've also just touched on upward comparison, where somebody has got the qualities that you like and that you want to emulate, and then you try to scaffold your way towards achieving those qualities with that person either fully aware, or maybe they're an author. Maybe they're not aware at all. That upward comparison. And then we also in our lives have downward comparison. That's where we look at somebody coming after us. Now, the pure and positive version is providing support for the young ones coming after us, for example, a mentorship, perhaps with a senior executive and a junior executive, a senior athlete and a junior athlete. But it's also, interestingly, on the more insidious side, it's so we can feel better about ourselves. So we may compare ourselves to our friend who's unemployed at the moment. Maybe they're an artist and perhaps they don't have a lot of money. We may compare ourselves to that person to feel better about where we are at currently. How do you go about that comparison effect as an elite athlete? Because there will be lessons for traders.
Yeah, it's a brilliant thing, that, Louise. My first thought is, rarely is it one person. Yes, you can focus on one person, but I'm yet to meet the one, the holy, who has all the answers. So what I believe is that there's pieces from a lot of people that we can take and go, really like that. And it can be as simple as somebody smiles a lot and so you go, oh, I reckon I could smile more. Or somebody gets up every time, like they've had a setback, they've had a bad trade, and they go, yep, I'm going to reload and go again. It's just like, oh, I'm going to take that. I'm going to use that, and this is probably leads me to one of my all-time favorite quotes. And it is, attitudes are contagious. Is yours worth catching? And what it does is it tells me, Don, you're on notice. People are watching you. What are you putting out there? So when we're talking about somebody who we're trying to bring up, what are we showing them? What are we showing our kids? What sort of mentor are we? And yes, we can have mentors that we look at. And sometimes our mentors aren't necessarily people that are a higher level. Yes, sure, they might have had more success or they've chosen it. But it's what I take from that is, what have they done to get to that point? Because that same person, like when you're you see it in footballs and footy club interviews, and they go, oh, this guy, he's the hardest trainer in the team. Like and you go, actually, we're the same level. We do the same thing, but I can do that more. I can do that better. And so it can be one of our peers, is what I'm saying. It doesn't always have to be somebody who's nailed it. Like mentors, I'm a big believer that there's no such thing as a bad role model. There's people that will teach us things, what we don't need to do, what we don't want to do, what not to do. That's a great role model for teaching us what not to do. So if we're not open to being able to see that and to acknowledge that, not just success, and not just wins, but losses as well. How do people deal with? So it's being able to just see as much as we can and take what we need, apply it to our life. And when we do it, a very simple process: keep, delete, and improve. So in other words, when we're doing something well, we get a bit of feedback, and someone says, "Oh, keep doing it. That's great. You're following the process. You're getting great trades. Good. That's my reminder. Follow the process. I'll keep doing that." Delete. Or you've had a win here in these small trades, but you went outside of the rules, or you didn't follow the process. Delete that. Could get back on track. Get rid of that straying from what we know should work, and then improve. Okay. An example of improve. Well, you didn't really follow your risk appetite here. You could improve that a bit. You were a bit reluctant, or you went too hard. You know what? Just have a look at that and try and improve that bit. So keep, delete, and improve is something that I can use every day for me as my self-assessment. How am I tracking? What am I going to keep? What am I going to delete? And what am I going to work on improving today?
Ah, so good. just to draw attention to a couple of things you've said there, your attitude is contagious. And in fact, research does show that emotional contagion is a real thing. If you are working in an office, you will always know where the black person is because they will be just sucking the energy out of that room. You can spot them a mile away. And I don't know how we do it, but we do it. You can tell.
You can
Just make
feel
sure
it.
you're not that person. You can feel it.
Yes, you can.
You really can. I think also leading on from that is energy does flow to the lowest point. So if you're the one that's trying to stay up, the only way you'll stay up is to make sure that you don't hang out with the people that are really down, or at least in some way limit your involvement with them. You may have to interact with them. However, watch your time that you're spending interacting with them, but also what's your frequency. So I have to think of a relative. I'm thinking of a particular relative right now, whereas I have to watch my time that I spend with her, and I have to watch my frequency that I spend with her, because it can bring you down. And then the other aspect that I loved with what you're talking about is the ability to do a reset. So that delete aspect is you can say, I no longer need that. I don't require that experience anymore. Let's get rid of that and start again. That fresh start psychology is a genuine phenomenon.
Louise, there's a couple of things there I want to just touch on. One is people and frequency. For me, I'm a simple man, right? I like to, I wake up every day and I check if my leg's grown back. It hasn't, but that's how simple I am. Well, wouldn't that be a good day if it's grown back? But so there's an excitement about the fact that I wake up every day and I get another crack at it, right? But to get to this point so that I can literally be grateful for every day that I have, what I do is I look around and go, well, who's in my network, who's in my circle, who's in my world? And then I look at it and go, right, everybody has a hat. It's an invisible hat, and I've just plonked it on everybody. I go, right, you're the one, when I want that emotional uplift or I want to be challenged, I'm going to talk to you. I've got one mate, and we go the deepest conversations I ever have about religion, right? And I'm not a religious person, but I don't have that conversation with anybody else, but I'll speak to him, and we always seem to go there. And it's our bigger purpose. What is it? That's the conversation I have with him. I've got another mate. The only thing we talk about is the Hawks, and that's okay. We're not interested in anything else. I don't actually know his kids' names. I just want to talk about footy with him. And so having people in your life that that's the hat they wear, because this is what happens is we put ourselves in a tough situation when we go to somebody with some questions or we're seeking advice and they're wearing the wrong hat. We don't go to a mechanic to get our hair cut. We go to the mechanic to fix the car. So it's as simple as know who's in your network. If I want financial advice, I'm coming to you. If I want the process to follow for success, I'm coming to you, because that's the hat that you wear. If I'm after something else, I'm going to that person who wears that hat. I'm saying it's your world, fill it with the people, and then that'll stop you needing to concern yourself about going, whether it's a cousin or that person that you wanted to, what hat's she wearing? What role does she fill in your conversation, in your space? And the reason this matters is, as a Paralympian, many times I would say to people, I'm going to go to the Paralympics. And then I would find the people go, oh, you can't do that, Don. You're too old, or it's like, what? And then you ask enough people, or you share your energy with enough people, the wrong people, and they take from you, they just take, and then you start to believe that. It's like, oh, maybe I can't go to the Paralympics. Huh? Since when? So that's what I'm saying. We talk to the right people. We know what hat they're wearing. I guarantee your life can change. It'll change because it just gets more filled. Your bucket gets filled when you're around each of those hat wearers that are playing their role in your life.
And traders, we are in that same circumstance. A lot of traders find, especially when they're starting, because we know that a dream is the most fragile when it is first birthed, that aspect where we say, I'm going to do this as a trader. I'm going to work full time for this company as a trader. I'm going to work for this institution as a trader. I'm going to work for myself as a trader. People will go, no, no, no. Even my accountant did. And then I stayed with him for long enough until I was out earning what I perceived would be his salary, rubbed his nose in it, and then changed accountants. It was kind of good anger motivation. That comparison, I may look like a marshmallow, Don, but I have an edge.
No. I sort of feel it. I sort of feel what's going on there. No, go on.
I want to talk more about the comparison effect because I know there is research about the silver medal effect. You've heard of that one, haven't you, Don? Yeah. So it's where the expressions of the people on the podium were analysed. The gold medalist was just like, yes, this is fantastic. My life, my dreams have all come true. Magic. The bronze medalist, surprisingly, was pretty damn good as well. Oh my gosh, I may never have got this medal, but how lucky am I to be standing here? And tell us what the silver medalist feels, Don.
The silver medalists filthy. They're filthy because, you know what? They've missed it. And if you're on the podium, you genuinely believe that you're shot at being on the number one step. And when you're not on the number one step, there's disappointment with that, as opposed to being on the number three step and you go, well, actually, if I step off here, I'm actually no medal at all. And I've been, fortunately, on all of those steps. And I can tell you now, the bronze medal one, that feeling of elation, it's like, you little ripper, I'm here, I've jagged the medal, and you get really happy with that. The gold medal, it's euphoria. It is something far greater than you could possibly imagine. And even if it's not necessarily your best results, what happens as a silver medalist is you analyze and you go, if I'd have got out of the blocks quicker, if I had done this, if I had of, often comes to mind. And at the end, long after, there's a little bit of satisfaction. Go, yep, I've got a silver medal, and you can't change that. But when that happens, there's way more emotions to deal with as a silver medalist. And usually there's a lot more negative in there. So being able to put that in perspective, I think, is still really important, and time helps us do that.
Yes, absolutely. And it can even help us laugh about it because time plus tragedy often equals humour.
Yes.
Yes. I think that a lot of traders who are working for a company that rates the traders. So there's one that I know of, and they rate the traders, but then the bottom two traders get kicked out. It's quite a very cutthroat arena. So I think this is what we're talking about as well. It is high stakes. Ego is involved because you are positioned against your peers and there's a ranking system. And there's also monetary rewards involved because if you do well, then hey, you're going to go well. So there are definitely barriers here in the trading world to achieving and to maintaining that achievement. Now, I'm curious, do you actually seek out people to compare yourself to, or do you just try to stay insular?
No. I'm a big believer that you want to grab. I mean, we only know what we know, and if we persevere with only finding out from a very small group of people, then we're not really getting the best result. Probably the greatest example I've got for me as an athlete, my dad was a former boxer, and he would say, mate, if you want to get fit, take up boxing. I said, Dad, I'm a track and field pentathlete, mate. I train 5 different events 12 times a week to try and get the best in that. He said, you want to get fit? Take up boxing. So I took up boxing. I went along to boxing, and I would go to boxing two nights a week, and I loved it. Honestly, it was a great way to just cross training. Really enjoyed it. And the thing that really got me is I would watch all these other boxers go out, get their skipping rope, and they'd go skipping, and I couldn't skip. For the first time in my life, I actually felt disabled because I couldn't do what everybody else could do. And I said to my prosthetist, the guy who makes my leg, Professor Leg, his name's not actually Professor Leg, that's a nickname we gave him because he makes great legs. I said, Professor, how come I can't skip? And he said, mate, You can't skip because it's too much weight coming down on your stump. Okay, I went and seen Doc Millans. Now, Doc Millans is an orthopedic surgeon. He chops legs off for a living, right? Pretty cool job. And not good legs, just dodgy ones, got cancer and stuff. Anyway, I said to the doc, Doc, how come I can't skip? And Doc said, nah, Donnie, amputees don't skip because it's too much weight coming down on your stump. You can imagine. Yeah, righto. Went and seen a few of my amputee mates missing bits. I said, oi, can you lot skip? Go, nah, amputees don't skip, Donnie. I said, wait, it's too much on our stump, right? Yeah, I said, righto. I went back and seen Johnny, my boxing trainer. So Johnny's about 72 years of age. He's been around, right? I said to Johnny, how come I can't skip? And what he said next changed the way I think. He said, because you haven't learnt it yet. I waited for him to bang on about, it's too much on your stump. Nothing. That was it. I thought, right, I better learn this. So I went and got a skipping rope, and that night I went out and I had a crack at skipping. I fell over 4 times. I hung my skipping rope up and I said, stuff, that skipping's overrated. The next day I come back, I thought, I'll have another crack at this. I only fell over 3 times. I thought, I can get this. I taught myself how to skip, and reasonably well, like a bit of crisscross on the side of the hole. And honestly, had I have only listened to the professor or the doctor or my other mates, my network, then the truth is that's the information that would have been coming back to me. It wasn't until somebody challenged that, and then I asked myself the exact same question. And if we don't ask ourselves the same question that we're willing to ask everybody else, my thinking is that we're not really getting the full picture. So I absolutely seek people out, but be willing to seek. Just because somebody says something doesn't mean it's gospel and you have to adopt it and live it. Like, you take it on to make informed decisions. And so when you say, do I seek people out? Absolutely. I'm an open book and I want to learn from as much as possible, but I know what feels right, and that's where I want to pursue that line of thinking.
What happens to an athlete whose ego gets out of check and they start to believe their own press?
It's dangerous. We see what happens is that usually the first thing that happens is their structure breaks down. But when people say, I've yet to meet a single person who is successful and they go, Don, I did this all on my own. There's not. They don't exist because we rely on other people to put all the building blocks together. And even you have a look at the tennis, when it's on the TV, there's somebody out there on the court, and then there's a whole lot of people in their box, a trainer, a physio, their manager, there's other people there. And when your ego gets out of check, you start not listening to those people. You start not following the same process that got you that success in the first place. And that is dangerous. And then what happens is, we fall over the edge, and we don't have those people. We don't follow the same process, so we don't get the same results. So I think ego needs to be managed. There's a place for us all to have our ego and to embrace it, but we need to make sure it's got a place in what we're doing. And to not have it there and to not keep it in check is a dangerous space.
Don, you are a superhero. I damn well love our conversations. Everybody listening, take Don's advice really on board, because what we're looking to do is to hone finely tuned trading machines. People who are detached, who don't suffer from that joy, despair, pendulum that we go through when we start out trading. We want to be that expert trader where we are detached, we do feel the emotions, but we don't have those big swings. And Don, you've really helped our traders get that step further. Don, how can people get in touch with you?
Louise, the absolutely easiest way to get in touch with me is my website. My dad said, mate, whatever you do in life, just keep it simple. So my website is all the W's, donelgin.com.au. Very simple. It's my name. There's a contact piece on there. I love receiving emails or people reaching out to say, hey, g'day, Don, saw you here or there. I love it. And more importantly, if opportunities present that I can to come to somebody's workplace or school, then, that's really my passion. So, yep, my website's the place to find me.
Oh, Don, thank you so much for your time. Onward and upward, my friend. I am always following you on LinkedIn as well. I love what you post up there. Keeps me up to date with where you're at. So for everybody listening, take into account everything that Don has been saying and watch your results soar. Remember to like and to subscribe because that really does help the channel. I'm Louise Bedford, and this is Mind Over Markets.